A long, long time ago, before humans built houses, before roads crisscrossed the forests, and before any town had a name, animals lived together in one vast, great land. They spoke to one another, they reasoned together, and they even held grand meetings. They had leaders, and everyone had a role to play. In this land, there was one animal that everybody knew. Not because he was strong, and definitely not because he was fast, but because he was incredibly smart. His name was Tortoise. But as you'll soon find out, being smart is not always the same as being wise. Tortoise was small, slow, and had short, stubby legs. But what he lacked in physical strength, he more than made up for with his sharp mind and even sharper tongue. Whenever the animals gathered for their meetings, Tortoise always made sure he sat right at the front. He talked the most, he advised the kings, and he was the one who settled the most difficult disputes. You see, lion was the strongest, elephant was the biggest, but Tortoise was the cleverest of them all, and because of this, the seed of pride began to grow in his heart. Instead of using his intelligence to help others, Tortoise started using it to deceive them. If food was being shared, Tortoise somehow always managed to get the biggest portion. If there was work to be done, Tortoise would conveniently disappear. And if praise was being handed out, Tortoise was always the first to claim it. Still, the other animals tolerated him because, let's be honest, he was useful. Until one day, something happened that changed everything. A long and harsh dry season fell upon the land. The rain simply refused to fall. The rivers, once mighty and flowing, dried up to a trickle. The lush green leaves on the trees turned a brittle brown. Food became incredibly scarce, and animals began to starve. So Lion, the king of the forest, called an urgent meeting. His voice boomed across the clearing. Every animal must contribute whatever food they can find, he declared. We will store it all together in a common store, so that no one in our community has to die of hunger. All the animals agreed. It was a good plan. Elephant used his great strength to bring heavy yams. Antelope, swift and nimble, brought sacks of grain. The birds flew to distant lands and returned with rare, delicious fruits. When it was Tortoise's turn, he stood up slowly and a wide smile spread across his face. My people, he announced grandly, I have something very, very special to contribute. A ripple of applause went through the crowd. They were all eager to see what the cleverest animal had brought. But what Tortoise didn't tell them was this: he had absolutely nothing. That night, while all the other animals were sound asleep, Tortoise tiptoed to the community food store. He carefully, quietly, stole small portions from everyone's contribution, a piece of yam here, a handful of grain there, a small fruit from the bird's pile. He hid all the stolen food inside his large, empty shell. By morning, he presented his collection as his own grand sacrifice. The animals were amazed and praised him for his generosity. Lion, the king, nodded in solemn approval. Tortoise just smiled, but his shell felt much, much heavier than before. As the famine worsened, the food in the community store began to dwindle. But strangely, Tortoise was never hungry. While the other animals grew thin and weak, Tortoise remained plump and full. At night, when others slept with empty, rumbling stomachs, Tortoise would feast quietly inside his hut on the food he had hidden. But secrets have a way of coming out. Rat, with his sharp eyes, began to suspect something. So did Monkey, who was always watching. One night, Monkey decided to follow Tortoise. And what he saw shocked him to his core. In the darkness, he watched as Tortoise opened his shell, and a small mountain of food poured out. Monkey gasped. So this is how you've been surviving? Before Monkey could run and tell the others, Tortoise's voice, cold and sharp, cut through the night. If you tell anyone what you saw, he warned, I will tell Lion that it was you who stole the food. Monkey was terrified of the king's anger, so he kept quiet. But lies, especially big ones, do not stay hidden forever. One day, the birds returned from a long journey with incredible news. The Sky Kingdom was hosting a magnificent feast, a feast with food beyond imagination, with no limits. But there was one condition: only the birds, Those with wings were invited. Tortoise's ears perked up. How can the birds go and eat while we all suffer down here? He thought, his mind already spinning a new plan. He went to the birds, his voice dripping with sweetness. My dear friends, Tortoise said, let us go to this feast together. After all, are we not one big family? The birds hesitated. But Tortoise, with his clever words, promised to share his wisdom and provide great entertainment for the Sky King. He was so persuasive that eventually, they agreed. Each bird plucked one feather from their wing and gave it to Tortoise, so that he too could fly. Just before they took off, Tortoise had another idea. In the sky, let us all take new names for the feast. It will be fun, the birds, excited, all agreed. Tortoise thought for a moment and then chose his new name, All of You. At the feast in the sky, the sight was breathtaking. Tables stretched as far as the eye could see, piled high with every kind of food imaginable. The Sky King stood and announced in a loud, welcoming voice, this food is for all of you. Tortoise immediately jumped up. Ah, that is my name, he shouted. I am all of you. And before anyone could process what was happening, Tortoise began to eat. And eat. And eat. He devoured everything. The birds watched in stunned silence, their hunger turning to pure anger. When it was time to return to Earth, the birds, furious at his deception, flew to him one by one. Each one took back the single feather they had loaned him. Without the feathers, Tortoise was helpless. He was just a heavy, shell-backed animal in the sky. And he fell. Down, down, down he tumbled through the air until, KPE. His shell shattered into countless pieces upon hitting the hard ground. That, the story says, is why Tortoise's shell is cracked and patched together today. Back on Earth, the famine finally ended. But for Tortoise, the respect he once commanded ended forever. Monkey, no longer afraid, told everyone what he had seen. The animals put the pieces together, his fake contribution, his mysterious full belly, his trickery at the sky feast. His theft was revealed. His pride had become his shame. From that day on, Tortoise was no longer invited to the meetings. He was no longer trusted. He was no longer respected. He was still clever, but he had lost everything that truly mattered. And so, this is the story of how Tortoise lost his honor. Not because he was foolish, but because he used his great intelligence without a good character. It's a timeless lesson. Cleverness without honesty will only lead to shame. Wisdom without humility can lead to destruction. And when you cheat others to get to the top, you will always, always fall alone. Thank you for watching. If this story resonated with you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more tales from a time long past. See you in the next video.